All right. Well, how's it going, everybody out there? If you guys can hear us and see us, make sure you drop something inside of the comments there. But we're super excited for this live demonstration of how a Gold Heat product is installed. Let's see if anybody can hear us and see us out there. Hello.
Everybody's phone's off.
We got a clap. Betsy clapped. Okay, sweet. They can hear us and see us. And Ramsey's one of the mic. All right, Ramsey, we're gonna hold off until Q&A, not for the grabbing the mic and all that good stuff. But yeah, awesome. We're super excited. Looks like Sarah's here from Chicago. I'm actually out of Portland, and so is the whole Gold Heat team. And I'll go ahead and introduce you guys. This is Bill here. He's part of the Gold Heat team. He's leading them up over there as far as spreading the word and getting the product into the hands of everybody who needs it. We're really excited for this live demonstration of, it's actually two different type of products that both work for tiny homes. And we're super stoked about the Gold Heat product for tiny homes because a little bit about our past. When we used to build tiny homes like 5 years ago, we were building tiny homes with we were trying to make different radiant floor heat products work inside of tiny homes, and we just couldn't figure it out. Either one problem or another would come up, and the support from those companies was always terrible, and quite frankly, it seemed like they didn't want their product used inside of tiny homes. But that's where Gold Heat steps in, is that they're really championing the charge and allowing their products to be used inside of tiny homes, and not just allowing it, but they're really encouraging it and showing that it's possible. And their background is they've been inside of the really high-end motor coaches for years and years, and they have done that. Basically, any motor coach that's over a couple $100,000 absolutely has Gold Heat in it because it's the best product on the market, and it's specifically designed for mobile use, which makes it the perfect application for tiny houses on wheels. So with that, I'll let Bill here take it away. I think he's going to give a demonstration. Actually, there's one more thing I need to tell you guys about. So there is a giveaway of the 100 square feet of black gold, which is a specific product that Gold Heat has. They're going to do a demonstration on it here in a little bit. But if you click that link that's up at the top, I'm not sure if I'm inverted on your guys' screen, but it's either here or there. But above the chat bar, and I guess if you're on a phone, it'd be at the bottom. Above the chat bar, there's a link that's, I'll also put it into the chat as well, but it's a link to the submission form for the giveaway. So make sure to fill that out, and then we'll do a drawing at the very end for who wins the 100 square feet of black gold. So with that, I'm gonna let Bill take it away, and we're super excited for it.
All right, thanks, Zach. Welcome everybody to our Hillsboro workshop. And we're gonna go through a couple of things. I'm gonna see if I can get our slideshow up here for a second and just run through our planned agenda here. So hopefully everybody can see our agenda. We're going to go through a pretty quick introduction, just give you some background on the company, a little bit about our products. We'll do a run through of science of radiant floor heat, which is a presentation we've done a few times, kind of talks about the different types of heating that you can use, and specifically about radiant floor heat and why that's all the advantages for that. We're also going to run through sort of a flooring 101, but as much as I can focus it on tiny house applications. I'm going to talk about a few different types of floors, some that really are or aren't suitable, but give you some reasons why not, maybe. And then a lot of stuff about ones that really are suitable. And then we'll go into a demonstration of our Gold Heat product and take a little break, come back and do a demonstration of our black gold product. And finally get to our giveaway, which is for a 100 square foot kit. It's a custom designed kit, so we'll need some input from the winner to design it to fit your space, up to 100 square feet of our black gold product. It's an entire kit, including all the pieces that you'll need for it. So that's the layout of the agenda. And let's see if I can get out of here. Can you hit escape for me? Thank you. Okay, and we're back. So just to kind of start off, I'll give you a little bit of background about Gold Heat. We're been in business about 20 years. we've been putting our flagship product, which is our Gold Heat product, in your coaches. Like Zach said, the higher end ones, all the ones that get the fancy ceramic tile throughout the whole coach. We've been doing that for almost 20 years now. If you can think of a motor coach rolling down the road, it's like a 8.0 earthquake all the way down the road. It's a fantastic, durable product that's designed to withstand that kind of stress. Our customers, RV manufacturers, builders, whether they're custom builders or larger builders, remodelers, contractors and installers, tiny home builders. We sell to a little bit here and there to do-it-yourselfers. So if you're in that boat, we can help you too. And really, our flagship product is the Gold Heat product. That's a wire-on mesh, typically for install under either stone or ceramic tile, maybe some other picky kinds of floor covering. It'd be the right choice. We're going to go through really where you would and wouldn't want to use that or our other product. And really the great thing about it is it's simple to install, super fast. I've heard one of our tech guys, Jim, say record installation in an RV is 12 minutes for our product to be installed in an RV. So, when you consider where you can get radiant floor heat, one of the advantages to working directly with us is, as opposed to buying it online or from Home Depot or one of the other box stores, you're going to get a lot of help from us right from the beginning in a design phase. Even before that, when you start talking about considering doing radiant floor heat, we can give you some help all the way through the design and actually getting the product, and then through the installation training to make sure that you're happy with the final install. We really like to look at it as a partnership. In fact, for tiny home builders, we have a new customer partner program that I could go over with anybody who's interested about that. But again, we go through that whole line of help that we can give you, and we back that up with a service number that's supported from right here in Hillsboro, Oregon, live. You can get a hold of the actual people. And if you ever get a hold of one of my business cards or look online, you'll find my cell phone number on there, and it's there for a reason. So feel free to reach out to me directly. Okay, that's Gold Heat as a company. I'm going to try and get our presentation back up and running here. Bear with me here.
Yeah, not that PowerPoint thing. Okay, close it.
Oh. Bear with me here just a sec. We had this problem in practice earlier. Okay, thanks. Okay, we talked about the giveaway. So science of radiant floor heat. The first thing really to think about is, what does it mean to be warm? And that's actually kind of the point of this whole presentation. One of the things that is important is its balance. So to be warm, your body wants to be the core at about 98.6 degrees. And if that's true, and your skin temperature is about 93 degrees, and the ambient air temperature is about 80 degrees, most people are going to feel comfortable. And that's really what we're trying to achieve. But the comfort is that balance between all the elements that contribute to make you feel that way. The key is don't give away your heat, which is what happens often in a residential situation. So here's an example. You've got a cold countertop. Somebody's cleaning it with a paper towel. And if you look at the FLIR camera, which is just a thermo imaging camera we have over there on the right side, it's stealing. That's a picture after of your hand and the heat that's in your hand and that's being left behind on that countertop. Kind of a more pertinent example, who wants to feel this when they leave a bathroom? You've got the toilet seat and also the footprints left there. That's all heat that's been stolen from your body that you've left behind that's making you feel cold in the morning instead of warm in the morning. Another example, here's Maddie the dog, who was laying in one position and has rolled over to another position. You can see how warm she is, but you can also see over time still how much heat has been left behind as she's rolled through that picture. Really, the key takeaway here is if you have a cold floor or other cold objects in the room, no matter how warm the air is in that room, those cold things are still going to steal heat from you. So if we look at a tiny home that's being heated with a mini split, so a forced air system, which is a type of convection heating, you look at where that 131 degree is over on the left top side, that's where the mini split's actually sitting. It's where it's putting out that heat. So you can see as the heat moves away from that point up, it's maintaining a lot of it. You're 105 degrees, a little bit away. As it goes down, that heat is not staying there. It's coming back up, so it's not as effective. And the further and further you get away from that mini split, the worse the situation is. It's not an even heat that's comfortable through that whole space. So it's also only going to work while that heat is blowing from the mini split. So if you're standing next to that 65-degree door, the heat is only going to impact you if that fresh heated air continues to blow past you. It's also blowing allergens, dust, all kinds of other stuff that you don't want. It's making noise, it's taking up space, and it's going to need maintenance over time. So those are all things that come along with a forced air system. Now, we're not going to say do away with your forced air system altogether, because chances are in the summer you're going to maybe want some air conditioning, and you're going to need that. That's something that radiant heat's not going to provide. And it's also something that will work in conjunction with a properly operating radiant floor heat, that it can work together to provide a nice balance through the whole space. So before we talk specifically about radiant floor heat, let's talk about what is radiant heat. So you have the electromagnetic radiation spectrum, and if you look right in the middle, you've got visible light. Everybody's familiar with that. You move to the right and you hit UV, so ultraviolet radiation. You don't see it, but that's what hits your skin when you're out in the sun and causes sunburn. Keep going to the right, and you get into X-rays and gamma rays and other stuff that's used in medical technology, stuff that radiant heat flooring material does not contain any of that stuff. If you start moving left from the visible light, you hit infrared, and that's what radiant floor heat relies on. So our floor panels will radiate infrared light, and that causes the heat to come up through, and everything that it touches is warmed by that infrared light. Keep going to the left, you get into microwaves and radio and TV transmission. And again, those are not contained in our floor panels, not relevant, other than they exist, and just want to mention that they're not something that you need to be concerned with, because our floor heat doesn't contain them. So this is, when you go outside, the feeling that you get from radiant heat, that feeling of sun shining on you, that wonderful warmth that you're provided when you're out in a natural environment with the sun shining on you. If you go in the shade, you can still be comfortable if the ambient temperature is high enough, but you no longer feel that direct warmth. So what we're trying to accomplish is to balance where your ambient temperature, that person, the orange person on the left there, might be too hot because it's 80 degrees out. Remember that number, if the ambient air is 80 degrees, but they're feeling that radiant heat in addition to that beating down on them, they could be too hot. Same thing if that person over on the right, if the ambient temperature is a little bit less and they're not getting radiant heat because it's blocked by the sun, by the clouds, they could feel too cold. So again, we're looking for that balance. So radiant floor heat in a tiny home environment. Now you have a radiant source that's the entire floor. Every place you can see flooring that has our product installed under it is going to provide that IR radiant heat that's going to come up. Starts at 82 to 84 degrees at floor, and it's an even transmission as it comes up through the space chest high, you might be at 75 degrees. By the time you get up to the top of the space, maybe 72. So you have this wonderful even heat that's heating you as you're in the space. In addition to that, all the objects that are in that space, the cabinets, the countertops, the commode, are also receiving that radiation and warming up so that as you touch them, they're not stealing heat from you and you maintain that comfort level. So that's radiant floor heat. A couple other things that it gives you. It's a non-allergenic, non-dust blowing environment. It doesn't take up any additional space. There's no noise, and there's no maintenance on the system. In fact, you will run your mini split less, so you'll have less maintenance on the mini split. And it reduces condensation, which is a huge issue in tiny homes, both inside the unit and in the space underneath the unit, because it is also warming the space below the unit. So the last thing, couple things I want to touch on in this presentation, a couple of myths that I've run into out there while talking to people, tiny home builders and other people while I'm out talking. And the first one is that it's a big power hog. Well, if you think about a 200 square foot tiny house, it doesn't need as much floor heat as you might think it does. This is an example one we just installed a couple weeks ago. You can see that where the tub is or where the shower is, where the cabinets, the toilet, other built-in fixtures like the bed, you don't need to put radiant floor heat under those parts of the flooring. We'll talk about this in a minute when I talk about floors. You probably shouldn't be putting a lot of types of floors under those items either. So you don't need to have radiant floor heat under those areas to have it effectively warm the entire space. So you can reduce your upfront cost and you reduce your operating draw and cost for your energy. So it's not as big a power soak as you think. This particular one, only 39% of the square footage needed radiant heat for an effective installation. And that's something that we can help you through to make sure that you're strategically planning how to utilize that space and how to put in the right amount of floor heat. We're showing our black gold product here as an example. Second myth is if you have a product that runs at fewer watts per square foot, it must be more efficient. Kind of makes sense until you really think through the whole proposition here. If you need to warm an entire space and you have 100 square feet, or in this example, 200 square feet of radiant floor heat, and you have a 6-watt system per square foot on the left side, it's going to run 100% of the time to provide enough warmth in the sample that we set up to make that area comfortable. If you have a 15-watt per square foot system, which is the cap that you're allowed to run under national code, you are only going to run that system 46% of the time. So it'll run on a full on, full off cycle, but it'll only be powered on for 46% of the time. That is going to give you the same amount of heat. It's going to give you draw the same amount of power, but what it's going to give you in addition to the 6-watt system is the headroom to run more if it needs to in a more demanding situation. So if they're on a one-on-one example like this, you're not going to see a difference in your power consumption, but where you need more heat in South Dakota in winter or in a house that doesn't have quite as much insulation, then you have the ability to run the system more to be able to compensate for that. So another myth that I've run into out there several times. Reminder, we're going to do this a couple times through here. Don't forget to sign up. You have a little bit of homework to do if you want to get signed up for the giveaway. Just take a minute and do that. And we're going to close out of this presentation. If you can just hit escape for me. Thank you. And come back to our workshop here. So that's our Science of Radiant Heat presentation. At this point, we're going to take a minute and just have some questions and answers on that presentation, any of those concepts, anything that you want to talk about. And And FYI, we do have a couple of you that are in the chat. So if you're typing questions, you may get an answer right there. And we may lift a couple of those questions from the chat, or also stuff that are coming in directly to us. So do we have anything that's come in so far? First one is, what is the benefit of a gold heat mat over the competition? So we haven't really talked about gold heat versus black gold yet, but competition, gold heat is a very simple product to install, and that's because we do a lot of the homework up front with our contractors to on site. So huge advantage over the situation. Again, there's a little bit of upfront work, but it pays off in droves by the time you get there. Here's another question: cost of a typical system. So we typically sell through builders, contractors, tiny home builders. The system that we just had there, that 200 square foot tiny house that used about 80 square feet of material, would probably add somewhere between $2,000 and $2,200, maybe a little bit more than that, depending on the installation, how cut up it was, to the end user. And obviously, the material portion of that sold to a tiny home builder would be significantly less, because it would not include the installation, and it would be a dealer price to them. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Just keep typing them in. We'll keep trying to answer them as they come in, and keep moving forward. So with that, I'm going to jump into, and I have no PowerPoint for this, so I'm just going to jump into talk about a few different types of floor covering, and what is and is not, and pluses and minuses of all those different types of floor covering, and try and tie it as much as I can to a tiny home environment. So first one is ceramic tile or natural stone. Super beautiful product. You have different sizes, different formats, all different colors. Ceramic tile more and more is coming out with products that look like hardwood that you can install there, but they're super durable. They can be very hard underfoot. They can be very cold underfoot, asterisk without radiant heat underneath them. But from a fashion standpoint, they're super unique. They do great in wet environments. They can be thick, which is a transition problem sometimes from one flooring material to another, especially in a tiny house. And they can be heavy, which is potentially a downside in a tiny house. And the one thing I'm leaving out that everybody cringes is grout, because you have grout joints, which are cleaning and other cracking issues and stuff that happen in regular houses, and even more so in a tiny house environment. But I will say we've been putting our gold heat product under ceramic tile and porcelain tile in RVs for 20 years with very little issue. And I was at a rally back east about 3 months ago where we had the privilege of speaking to about 500 RV owners. All came from all over the place to West Virginia to a rally. And the people that had it, which was about 2/3, all said, without a single exception, that they would never buy another RV without radiant heat in it. And they all have ceramic tile over the top of that. So ceramic tile or natural stone can be a great product in that environment. I wouldn't rule it out just because it's heavy. Sheet flooring. So you have a bunch of different kinds of sheet flooring, and there's a great advantage to sheet goods in a tiny home environment. It's a floor that you can put down first in the whole space and install everything after that on top of it. Your built-in fixtures, cabinets, shower, built-in beds, all that stuff. You can put in a seamless floor over the entire unit. A lot of travel trailers are done that way. And there's an advantage to that. Disadvantage, a lot of floors do not look all that great. You've got some that do a fairly good job of either looking like a hardwood or looking like a natural tile. Depending on the quality, they can be durable or not durable. depending on the finish, whether it's a PVC, which is a lower level finish, or a urethane finish. They can be easy or hard to clean and yellow over time or not. For my money, it's worth every penny to go from a PVC to a urethane finish if you're looking at some type of a sheet flooring. And the ones that I'm talking about all would have a pre-finished finish on them. There are different types of backing. And really, in a tiny home environment, the thinner floors that have a paper back are probably not the right choice. They're not going to be as durable. They're not going to cover up imperfections in the subfloor. So there would either need to be a perfect subfloor installation or a lot more prep work before you can put down sheet vinyl, or you go to a fiberglass or a cushion back installation. When you go to those, they're going to hide a lot of the imperfections in the subfloor, which would include installing our black gold product, which is very thin, but with a thin sheet vinyl, you could see the joints in that product telegraph through. So I would definitely recommend going with at least a fiberglass or a cushion back. And with some cushion back, they're intended to be loose laid, which is probably also not the right installation in a tiny home environment. So kind of sum that up. If you're looking at sheet vinyl, it's great because you can put it in one piece, no seams. I would probably be looking at a cushion back glued down or a fiberglass glued down. And with either of those, you're going right over top of the subfloor with really minimal preparation and suitable to go right over top of our black gold product. Hardwood flooring. Who doesn't like hardwood flooring, right? So there's a lot of different kinds of hardwood. 3/4 inch solid hardwood has been pervasive for years, especially where I am in the Northwest because we have a lot of raised subfloors. But it really is not a good product to put in an environment where you're going to subject it to a lot of stress. It expands and contracts a lot. Wood by nature wants to expand and contract along the length of its grain. And that means that solid hardwood is going to move one direction way more than it will in another direction. It's going to shrink when it gets cold and gap, and it's going to expand and potentially peak at the seams or at the edges as it tries to expand into space that it doesn't have. So the cure for that with real hardwood is what they call engineered hardwood. And it's basically a hardwood plywood, so cross-laminated layers with a finished veneer that's the same look that you would get out of a real hardwood. Pre-finished is the way to go because you're going to have a product that is multiple thin layers of finish that's cured under UV lights in a factory environment instead of one or two coats put on site where it's got to cure in a natural environment. A much harder, more durable finish applied in a factory, and often they'll put ceramic crystals or aluminum oxide in a couple of those layers to give you even more durability. So hardwood in a tiny home, why wouldn't you want to do it? It can be heavy. It's definitely going to be thicker, so your transition heights can be an issue. And that's whether you have just at your exterior doors or if you have more than one flooring type in your space. Not great where you have moisture. So in a kitchen environment, you have to be a little bit careful. In a bathroom environment, you have to be a little bit more careful. But there is nothing that looks like natural hardwood. It's an absolutely beautiful product. And again, not something that I would rule out. And with engineered hardwood, you can certainly use it over our black gold product. You can glue it at the tongue and groove to float it. There are hardwoods that come with a click together tongue and groove, so you can use it that way also and install it as a floating floor. And that's definitely the way that I would recommend doing it if you're going to put it in a tiny home with radiant floor heat. Carpet. Who doesn't like carpet? Soft, comfortable. You can put it in just about any environment. So carpet used to be 60% of what was installed in most residential environments. It's down to 40% over the last 10 years. And two big things have really taken a chunk out of that. As more and more two-story homes get all hard surface on the ground floor, whether it's in the Sun Belt and people are putting in ceramic tile everywhere in their downstairs, or in other places where they're putting in all hardwood or laminate and luxury vinyl plank has taken a big chunk out of carpet sales. It's really shrunk. In a tiny home environment, you're probably not going to put carpet in stretched in over pad where you're putting tack strip around the perimeter and putting it in over pad. You can put radiant heat underneath that installation, but it's probably not the most practical way to install carpet. If you're going to do carpet, you're probably looking at a tough carpet, like a commercial carpet, something with a pattern and texture, a lot of color, if that's what you're after. And that you would put in glued down, and you could glue any piece of carpet with an action back or any type of a normal backing right over the top of our black gold product would be the one to use. It's a naturally warm product, and you just can't get the same visual that you can from carpet and the same feel that you can from other types of flooring. So, again, it's not used very often in a tiny home, or maybe selectively, but it's easy to change out. It's inexpensive, and it does give you some key benefits that you don't get from other types of flooring. Okay, kind of the 800-pound gorilla everybody's waiting for. Laminate and luxury vinyl plank. I'm going to say this is 75 to 90% of what I'm seeing tiny home builders put in a tiny home. Laminate floors really came in the 90s, and that's basically a plank made out of a core board that's similar to particle board. And then a layer on top of that that's a photograph of usually hardwood, and then a melamine layer that permeates that and locks it into that core. And the melamine is also the wear layer. So melamine has a very hard and sharp sounding finish. So you float that floor over top of another hard surface, and you get that hollow, tacky sound often that a lot of people don't like. The core boards are also particle board, so really susceptible to moisture. You have to be very careful on how you clean the floor, not to get too much water down in the floor so that you'll ruin it. The first place you'll see it is at the seams peaking or the floor swelling. You need to leave expansion space all the way around the floor because it will grow and shrink as a whole thing like a pancake in the space. So there's challenges in a tiny home with how you're going to deal with that expansion space all the way around the edges. So 10 or 12 years ago, Cortec was the first brand, kind of the one that brought in luxury vinyl plank, LVP or LVT, luxury vinyl tile. It's really the same basic product, just the visual is different. Maybe the format, the shape is different. Luxury vinyl plank is a waterproof product. So now you're no longer worrying about your maintenance. You're not worrying about flooding the floor. As long as it's not so much that it gets around the floor to the subfloor, you can still have issues. But to a large extent, it's almost like putting in sheet vinyl. It's not. They click together with a watertight joint, so it's not going to allow moisture to travel down to the subfloor, and the product itself is not going to be hurt by moisture. You can get it in tile visuals, in different kinds of wood visuals, and there's a couple of different types of luxury vinyl plank that have different pluses and minuses. You have WPC core, which is an extruded foam. It's typically going to be lighter. They'll make it thicker. Big advantage to that where you are replacing other types of flooring. You might need a 5/8 inch thick floor. That might be an advantage. You can do that with a WPC, and it won't be so heavy that it's impossible to deal with. It's more resilient, so it's going to be a little bit softer. It doesn't have as much of the tacky sound to it. It's going to be a little bit easier on your knees and hips and everything else. It's a better thermal barrier, so it's not going to let, in a residential application where you have a concrete floor, it's not going to let that cold come up to the floor as much as a SPC, which is the other type of core, would do. And it's also a better acoustical layer. It's not as sharp a sound, and it does not let sound travel through the product like to a downstairs space as easily. So the other one is a SPC core, which a lot of times will be high content of limestone or some other type of stone in the core. And both of these products have the same thing as laminate. They'll have a photograph of wood or tile or something like that that's adhered to that with a wear layer put on top of that. So the SPC core is harder. It's going to be thinner, heavier, and does not expand and contract as much as the WPC core. So that's a big advantage for it. You put it in a space, you don't need to leave as much expansion space. You don't need to worry about the growth and shrinking as temperature and humidity changes within the space. It's a little bit cheaper. So what I'm seeing is in the last year or two, big swing to SPC core because of the price and because of the benefits of it being less susceptible to shrinking and expanding. And in the last year, some swing back to WPC because of the advantages of more comfortable underfoot, a little bit quieter, and a little bit more resilient. So there's a balance. Now, both of these products can have different resolutions of that picture that shows the wood. The price will jump significantly as you get higher resolution film, and also different film that has a pattern repeat that is over a bigger area, so you don't see that, it's laminate because I can see that same board there and 2 feet away the same board you don't get with real hardwood. And the finish that goes over the top, you can get in 6, 12, 20, 30 mil finishes. Once you get past 20 mil, you're really getting to overkill. You get into commercial finishes, and it really doesn't matter. The finishes, for the most part, very similar. Once you get to 12 or 20 mil finish, you're in a high-end product. It's suitable for just about any application. And usually the commercial will come in, if you're putting it in a commercial application, it'll have a different warranty that covers that, where a different product might not be covered if it's installed in that environment. So that's really the luxury vinyl plank and laminate category. Other products. So there's some other kind of picky floors, like marmoleum. It's really old-fashioned linoleum. It's made out of linseed oil and ground-up sawdust and other stuff packed together, jute backing. It's all natural products. Great thing, does not have a finish on it. So typically you're going to want to put some type of a wax or something else on it, which makes it higher maintenance. It's also super picky about what you install it over the top of. So I bring that one up because that's an example where you might not want to use the black gold product from us. If you want radiant floor heat, you might want to use our gold heat product, which is typically installed over, which is typically put underneath ceramic tile. But you would, instead of using thin set, you would use our self-leveling compound. Pour that out in about a 1/4 inch deep, and that would encase the gold heat product, and that'll give you a mirror smooth finish to be able to install any type of floor covering over the top that's really picky that you need to glue down, like a marmoleum, or for that matter, cork floor, or a luxury vinyl plank that's not a floating floor that needs to be glued down, or there are some that actually are loose linked. So that's a great application for our gold heat product in a self-leveling compound where you have a really picky floor. And I think that really kind of gets the end of all the different floor categories. Bamboo, I just had a question. So bamboo flooring, I would put in the hardwood category with the caveat. A lot of times it more often will come with a click together so it can float. For me, bamboo is not the same as hardwood in that most of them are softer. Bamboo is a much more renewable source. It's a faster growing bush. It's not really a tree. And there are some things that they can do to it, caramelize it, they cook it to harden it. It's no longer a natural cut, and they'll put it together. And it's super durable potentially in that situation, but typically a bamboo is going to be very similar to an engineered hardwood with some type of a urethane finish applied over the top of it. Okay, and with that, we wrap up our flooring segment, and if we have any flooring related questions, I'm happy to take those as well. See if we give you a second to see if we have any coming in here.
Cork flooring.
Mm-hmm. So cork flooring is kind of a mixed bag. I got a question about just details on cork flooring. So there's a lot of different ways you can get it. I was talking to somebody recently who works for a tiny home company that is a customer of ours, and she's a customer of theirs also. She's just about to have a tiny home that she's going to move into. And she's very interested in using a natural product, and cork is what she's looking at. You can get cork flooring that is literally sheet cork that can be installed. You can get cork flooring that comes very similar to a commercial product that would be some type of a backing. Vinyl is really common with a cork layer that gives you both your resiliency of cork. Cork is a pretty good acoustic insulator, thermal insulator. It's soft underfoot, and then they'll put some type of a finish over the top of that for performance. That can be glued down. You can buy that. Ipocork is one brand I'm familiar with that does that in either squares, so it would glue down almost like a commercial tile, like a tile you would see in a supermarket, or in planks that will have a visual more like a hardwood floor once it's installed. You can also there are products that are just like that, but they're made with an addition of a core that will give some rigidity so that they can make it with the tongue and groove that will click together like a laminate or an LVP, and then it floats. So you put it in a floating environment. A lot of those will have, a lot of the LVP and laminates I didn't mention will have a cushion attached to the back. A lot of cork ones will have cork attached to the back as a cushion. So it's really a great category, and there's no reason you wouldn't want to use it. Question?
The material samples show off the
Our products?
yes.
Okay, so I can show you a couple of products that we have. The first one that we talked about is our Gold Heat product, which is a mesh. I don't know how well you can see the wiring, but we manufacture this right here in Hillsboro, Oregon, and we take a diagram that a customer submits, we convert it into a CAD drawing, and print it full size. So you end up with a full size printout of your space. We send it to our production floor, and they mock it up on a board, attach the mesh, and then run the wire the way it's been designed in the CAD drawing. It's hot glued to that. They do the cold leak termination, which is the way it connects to the thermostat that we provide for power, and then that's what comes, it rolls out, custom fit to your space on site. Our black gold product is a thin film product, so it comes in a 10-inch. We also have a 20-inch width, and for certain circumstances, for 240 volt, we have a 32-inch width as well. It's like a 30 mil thickness, so this adds virtually no thickness to the flooring when you put this in. And this is also, we can cut it in 10-inch increments, so you have almost no waste. Comes pre-terminated, so these connections at the ends, we don't send you the crimping tool and crimping stuff and wire runs on site. This is all done, laid out the way you lay it out in your space so that it comes out to you. You lay it out in a few strips, glue it down, and then lay your floor right over the top. So that's the two products that we carry. I think we have another question coming in here. Hang on just a sec. Are installations permanently?
Permanent.
Yeah, permanent. Not for a floor. So our products, the installation would be, especially Gold Heat, is a permanent installation. You can remove it. It's like chipping out concrete. So it would be installed either in a thin set bed or in a self-leveling bed. The only way you're going to get those out is with a chipping hammer, and probably in a tiny home situation, you're going to ruin your subfloor doing it. So realistically, no, they're not. Now, what you put over the top of it, that depends on what you're putting down. You can put down sheet vinyl, you can put down hardwood, you can use releasable adhesive, a pressure-sensitive adhesive in some situations that will provide you enough stick that it'll work. I can talk details with that. A lot of that is going to be manufacturer by manufacturer, dependent on what they allow, and a lot of them will have specific recommendations for that. A lot of them will have specific recommendations about whether they allow you to install a radiant floor heat at all, but the vast majority of them will, and they'll have some key guidelines to do that. Our black gold system is a system that, in theory, because it's put down with spray adhesive, if you had a floating floor installed over that, that's pretty easy to remove. You could remove the black gold without damaging the subfloor and start over with a new system. If you wanted to change everything to ceramic tile, you take out your floating floor, take out your black gold system, put in your Gold Heat, spread your thin set on top, rake your bed for your tile, put in your tile, and now you have a ceramic tile floor down the road. So it definitely could be changed out at a later date. Another question, when is the best time to consider a radiant heat system? So I would say once you are decided that you're going to move forward doing a tiny home, you start talking about what kind of refrigerator am I going to put in there? What type of other appliances, washer, dryer, microwave. Consider your radiant floor heat system an appliance, because it's going to take power. You're going to want to plan for its power utilization. You want to plan for how much you're going to need, so you know your upfront costs for the radiant heat, how much power draw, how much power you're going to have in your panel, and how much power you're going to have to allow for usage for your utility demand. So I would start early in the process, and by then, hopefully you're starting to consider what type of floor you're going to know, what you're going to use, so you know if you're going to go gold heat or black gold, because that's really the only two choices you have, right? Okay. One more question. Should the flooring and heat go under the cabinets? Different situations with different types of products. I'm going to give you the industry correct answer, and this doesn't mean it's right in every single situation. The biggest place where this comes up, and I have this question asked, is with a floating floor. So whether it is a floating sheet vinyl, whether it's a luxury vinyl plank, hardwood, any product that you do not adhere directly to the subfloor or whatever's sitting on top of the subfloor. The flooring industry would tell you you want all your connected fixtures to go in first. And the reason for that is because you do not want to trap that floating floor so that it cannot expand and contract. All of those floors, and there may be a few manufacturer exceptions, but almost every single one of those manufacturer is going to want you to leave expansion space around the edge, because as you get warm and cold and moist and dry, your floor is going to expand and contract in that space, and you do not want to have that locked in. So the right answer from a manufacturer is you want to put the cabinets and all the other fixtures, toilet would be an exception, in before you put a floating floor in. Now, if you're going to, typically ceramic tile, even though it's adhered, you're going to put all those in first and install the tile around those. If you wanted to put in something that's adhered directly to the subfloor, like a sheet vinyl or even hardwood that you're gluing down, or any other product that you're going to glue down, a vinyl plank, something like that, put it in first and put everything on top, you're welcome to do that. You could also put those products installed around the fixtures, would be just fine. Okay, well, we are going to have a question and answer again at the end, kind of a catch-all. So we're going to leave the flooring for just a minute, and we're also going to leave me for a minute. One more reminder, don't forget, I think it's this way, go up there and sign up for the giveaway. We want to make sure we give everybody a chance to do that, because it's 100 square feet of black gold product, complete with a thermostat. And we're going to go into black gold, and that's our second demo. You have a better understanding of everything that you're going to get once we go through that. So we're going to move from this portion of the presentation into our gold heat product and an actual install demonstration. And Kyle Naismith, one of our tech guys, is going to help us with that. And it'll take us just a sec to get reset here, and then we're going to move into that. We'll switch cameras, and we'll head that direction. Excuse me, I'll get out of the way.
Okay, can people actually hear us? That's going to be the next question here. Got to check to see if they can hear us in the other room. So, okay.
I'm going back to this part.
Can you pull that off? Yeah. But yeah, you can do that if you want.
Okay, I'm going to turn the floor over to Kyle here in just a sec. First thing though, we covered this a little bit, but just an introduction so you know what he's about to do. This is our Gold Heat product. You would typically see this installed underneath ceramic tile, porcelain tile, stone flooring, anything that you would put down with a thin set base. That gives you the opportunity to bury or encapsulate the entire Gold Heat product in that base and then rake your bed for your finished flooring and set your tile on top of that. Again, this is a product we make right here in Hillsboro, Oregon. It's been going in high-end RVs for 20 years. And with that, I am going to let Kyle take over.
So we're going to go over first how we do a Gold Heat install, and then we'll do a black gold install after we take a little break to get stuff reset. First we'll talk about what you get when you order a Gold Heat mat. So you're going to get the mat itself, which in this case is just a simple rectangle. But as Bill had mentioned before, it is custom designed to fit your space. So if you had this in a bathroom, for example, we would wrap around the toilet and around the base of the cabinets and all of that kind of thing. So you get very complete heating coverage, which is a little different than the black gold due to the fact that it comes in the strips and the pre-terminated lengths. When you get it, it is glued down. The heating wire itself is glued down to the fiberglass mesh. When it's installed, you're going to install it with the mesh side up, and you're going to be putting the thin set through the top. But the other things you're going to have in order to do the install are going to be a series of tools, and then also, however, you're going to be controlling your heated floor. This is our basic thermostat that we sell and include with both black gold and Gold Heat. It is what's called a line voltage switching thermostat, and what that means is it directly takes the 110 or 220 volt power through on this side. I probably won't be able to see it, but there's the bottom terminals are marked line, so that's the line voltage, and the top terminals here are marked load, which is your output. So this would be either tied to your one or multiple mats up to 100 square feet if you're in the 120 volt space, but it can also be run on 240. So Gold Heat can be designed for either voltage, or actually we do have some industrial applications where we do it for 208 volt as well. On black gold, you can do it in 120 or 240 volt, which I don't think we talked about before. So on 120 volt, you are in either product, you're limited to 100 heated square feet, and that's due to the switching capacity of a single thermostat. There are expansion units, which are additional relays, so you get 100 square feet more per relay. But in most cases, people tend to split it into multiple zones. So you would have your bedroom and bathroom maybe on one zone, the living room on another. These thermostats in particular are very, very simple. It's just up, down on the temperature and basically turn on, off, and on. It's non-programmable, and part of the reason that's important is because if you're a tiny home on wheels and you are connecting or disconnecting power, most every programmable thermostat will forget all of those settings, so you have to reprogram it every time. There are other thermostats that can be used. This is the one we provide. If you have particular questions on that, reach out to us. The other thing that's included in that is going to be your temperature sensor, which is this little guy here, this little nubbin on the end. This is very important because in a radiant floor heat system, you're heating to the temperature of the floor, not the temperature of the room. So this needs to be, in this case, in the Gold Heat, it will be encased underneath the wire when we set this up on the subfloor. I guess you can't quite see that this way. In the similar thing for black gold. It's not so much important with Gold Heat, but with black gold, another important feature is that your thermostat has a maximum temperature setting, because the different materials, depending on what the manufacturer recommends, have a limit on how high you can go on the heat. It's usually 85 degrees for most of the laminate kind of products. As far as tools, you're going to need to do a Gold Heat install. You're going to need your mat. You're going to need your router for routing the pocket where the cold lead, which is this section here where the heat wire attaches to the mat itself. That's a little bit thicker, so you're going to need a router relief spot for that, and then also for routing where the temperature sensor is. And then you're going to want a staple gun or contact adhesive, but generally staple gun to attach the mat, again, mesh side up, and a Sharpie. That's about it, really, for doing a tool-wise for a gold heat install. Vacuum, too. You want to make sure that you get your surface swept and cleaned up beforehand. So in this case, if we were going to fit this space or this heat mat to our space, the first thing we're going to do is figure out where we're going to be routing. So in this case, what we'll do is just kind of use our Sharpie to mark the areas that we're going to have to route out. And then also where we're going to put the temperature sensor, which in this case, we're just going to come in over the edge here and route the pocket out. So that's what we're going to need to route out. So in order to do that before we do any of our stapling. Bear with me 1 second. Get your plugs and eyeglasses put on here. Okay. One thing I did forget to mention tool-wise is you're going to need something to adhere your temperature sensor and wires down in the grooves that you use. So for what we use, just usually a hot glue gun. That usually works best for the temperature sensor. Another method you can do, you can actually use a piece of copper tubing. So what that allows you to do is in most of these installations, your temperature sensor is pretty permanently stuck down in the floor. But they do sometimes go bad, and in a tile floor, there's a couple different methods you can do to add one or replace it. But one method for one of our OEMs for the RV industry is they use a copper tube, just a little piece of tube. But what it does is it allows you to slip the temperature sensor inside. So in that case, you put the whole tube down on the floor, and if you bring it over to the edge, that means you can actually slip that temperature sensor out if you have to. In this case, we'll just glue it in, but just a good idea depending on what you're doing. So go ahead and glue this temperature sensor in here. Let that start getting set. And we'll take our mat and fit it into our grooves here. Kind of hard to tell from the top, but by routing that, it allows us just to lay perfectly flat down over the floor, just even with the top of the wires. And doing a tile floor, you are just setting, putting your grout, your thin set right down, and then putting it direct down over the top of the wires. So once we have that fit in, we'll staple our mat down, ideally going on about a 6-inch grid. Usually works best to either start at an edge and work your way out across the room, or start in the middle and spread out. Just kind of depends on your space and how complex the geometry is. You do want to make sure, though, when you're doing that, that you're not nicking the wires. One thing, which as I say that, realize I don't have one sitting here, there is a device that is used when you are installing a gold heat system, not a black gold setup, called a loudmouth. And what it allows you to do is clip onto your hot, neutral, and your ground wires of your cold bleed. And you have that clipped on there and turned on the entire time you're working on the floor. And what that does is if you did hit this wire with the staple and damage it, it's going to scream at you and let you know that there's something wrong. That way you can stop right then and fix it before you get the whole floor together and realize that it doesn't work. So a lot more details on that on our quick install guide, which is up on our website, www.goldheat.com. There's a great document there for the quick install of the gold heat as well as the black gold. And also under the resources tab, there's the full detailed instructions for both of those as well. Most of your questions can be answered through those sources. But essentially, once you have this all glued and stapled down, you're just ready to start spreading your thin set out and putting your tile down, which we're not going to do here. Creates a lot of mess, and that's no different than doing any other tile floor. So that's basically all you got to do. And then at that point, you've just got your 3 wires you hook up to the back of that thermostat. You've got your hot and your neutral, and then your ground gets tied into your ground bus. One thing I did forget to mention, these thermostats do just fit inside a standard junction box. So if you remove the front cover, you've got a little hole, and that's where your 2 little wires from your temperature sensor go, which there's no polarity. They can be connected either way. And then you've got 2 screws, which screw in just like a light switch or a regular outlet into a single junction box. So pretty straightforward on that end. So I guess we'll do questions here on this, and then we're going to take a little break and get set up and do our black gold demo. So any of you guys have any questions? I think I can pull up the live feed here, and if not, I will have somebody shout it out from the other space. Question here, do you need a vapor barrier? So for gold heat, you do not, because you're going direct down over the subfloor and putting the tile on top of it, and it's all adhered together. There can be a little bit different methods if you're going not directly over a wood subfloor like this. You can install it over other subfloors. There's a little bit different methods, and it's probably best just to reach out to us directly, and we can talk you through that. Usually what it means if you're doing it over concrete is that you want to put a thermal break material there. That's primarily to direct the heat up into the space, so you're not just warming the slab. But it also decouples from the concrete, so you have to adhere that mat down, and there's a whole bunch of different stuff. So better to talk to us directly if that's something you're going to do, but that's not something you're probably going to run into in a tiny home setup. What comes in the gold heat kit? So in the gold heat kit, you're going to get your thermostat, the heat mat itself, a quick install guide, and envelope that has the drawing that was actually used to make the mat, which is useful for service information. And you would also be getting a loudmouth mat monitor for those type of setups. Yeah. And depending on your space, you may be getting more than one mat. So we can, in a tiny home, it's probably never going to be more than 2 mats. But depending on your space and the form factor, there are multiple mats that fit together. And in which case, if it's on one controlled zone, you're just wiring everything up in parallel, whites to whites, black to black. Or if it's multiple mats, you may have multiple controllers depending on how it's set up. Let's see. Yes, can you cut the mat and splice it and make it shorter? No. I can't say that enough. No. The mat is customized when you order it. So the way the process works is you give us a drawing of the space, and then we give you back a drawing that has the heat mat drawn into it, and you approve that drawing, and then we go from there and actually manufacture it. So it is not something you can customize after you have ordered it. It can be repaired though, so if there is a break in the wire and we help you diagnose it, we do have repair kits with special splices for splicing together the wire. But in general, no, do not cut that. Yes, something I did forget to mention with the thermostat, GFI breakers. So these systems per national code need to be on a GFI protected circuit. That's just like the outlets you might have near your kitchen sink or in the bathroom where it's got the little test reset button in them. On those, the GFI is right in that outlet receptacle. Same kind of thing with this. On the side of the unit, which you probably can't see, there's two buttons here, test reset. Same idea, they're built into the unit here. There are GFI breakers that go into your breaker panel. Those, if you're using a non-GFI protected thermostat, you would need a GFI protected breaker. However, you do not need both, because if you do, bad things happen and you get all sorts of funny diagnosis problems, and it's just bad. So you do need GFI per national code, but one or the other. The other thing is floor heat does need to be on a dedicated breaker per national code. It does not need to be one breaker per mat, but the heating itself does need to be on a separate breaker. So in a tiny home, you likely will end up with like one, probably 20 amp breaker that would feed 1 to 2 controllers, would be the most common installation. You can do a separate breaker per thermostat if you want, but at a minimum, it needs to be on its own dedicated breaker for the floor heat itself. Gold Heat is UL listed. That was one question. So we maintain a listing through Intertech that means that our products meet all current National Electrical Code. Part of that is the no more than 15 watts per square foot and a number of other things. But yes, it is a UL listed product. Let's see. I don't know. I think Jim and Stephen have been jumping in and answering most of your questions. So yeah, I do see one question about kind of talking about, I'm assuming there's more in the back, but talking about can it heat the entire space as a primary heat source. And as Bill had talked about kind of in the beginning a little bit, touch base on, it's a great part of a heating system mix, but if you're in an extreme climate, you're probably will probably be a good supplement. The mini split, which works like a heat pump, can only heat so much depending on the temperature differential, so it can be a great thing to go with that. It really all depends on your environment, but even more so your insulation. And if your tiny home is built to the building code in the area where you're using it, the insulation should meet appropriate conditions for that. So. Okay, I think we are going to take a little. Yes, one last question. So Bill talked about a little bit with the electromagnetic spectrum. The question was, I have cancer. Radiation is, something to me is a bad word. And unfortunately, radiation is kind of ambiguous. There's everything that is on that electromagnetic spectrum is technically a form of radiation. What you're thinking of is that real high-level radiation, which is the gamma rays, the X-rays, UV light. Those are the things that are in the ionizing radiation category, which can cause cancer. When you're down in the radio waves and the infrared light, it is very different, very separate. So you do have to remember that technically you are being heated by infrared radiation every time you walk out in the sun. The only problem with the sun is if you do have the ultraviolet light component there as well, but it is still technically radiation that is heating you. And Bill's wants to talk to you here before the break, and we'll go. So let's switch the camera.
That's okay. That's all right.
Okay.
So we're going to take a 5-minute break. I have 3:09. I'm going to say 3:15. We'll be back with technically 6 minutes. The only other thing I just want to reiterate one more time, when you get this product, it's going to come out and roll out like an area rug right in your space, custom made. So you won't have any need to cut anything. It's all just put the product in and connect it. So anyway, we'll be back with Black Gold here in about 6 minutes. Thanks. All right, this is Bill from Gold Heat again, and we're just going to get started here in just a sec. I just thought I'd get back on, let everybody know we're getting close. We got 3:15 right now, so our next demo is our other product. This is a product that is a thin film. This would be intended to go underneath just about every other type of flooring except for ceramic tile and really picky floors. It's super thin, but anything you're going to glue direct that isn't thick like a hardwood or something like that, I would still recommend using self-leveler and going that direction if you wanted to use a glue down product directly on top of one of our Radiant Heat, and then you put the Gold Heat product in that. So this is for, I'm going to say 90% of what will go over top of this is luxury vinyl plank and other floating floors, and that's probably 75% or more of what I'm seeing going in tiny homes. So before we jump there, I just want to one last time give you a giveaway reminder. If you haven't done your paperwork, homework there, do that. We're going to probably 5 to 10 minutes from now, we're going to start pulling those together and select the winner so we have it available when we come back at the end of this part of the demo. So black gold. What is black gold? It's a lightweight carbon-based film intended to go under primarily floating floor, but anything else that needs a thin, no buildup, something to provide radiant heat. Comes in 10-inch, 20-inch, and if you go to 240-volt, 32-inch widths. And we cut it in 10-inch increments. So it's going to be cut to fit the space the way you lay out the panels. Why would you want to use black gold? Because of the super thin stack up. It's less than a 1/16 of an inch added to the overall installation, so it doesn't affect your door heights, doesn't affect your transitions to other flooring. You would want to use it when you don't have a need to use any kind of a thin set that you would have available to bury Gold Heat in. And because it's a simple spray adhesive installation, and because it is pre-terminated, so you have no issue with assembling packages on site. The only wire connections you're going to make are the ends where you connect them to the thermostat or gang them together and then run one lead of each to the thermostat. Okay, so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Kyle and we'll talk about black gold installation.
So when you are getting black gold, your black gold kit, you're going to end up with a box that has a whole bunch of these panels. They're all rolled up together like this with leads stuck in the end of them. Again, you'll have your thermostat or thermostats, depending on the setup, which included inside of them is the temperature sensor. I just have this one pulled out already. You'll also have a template for helping to mark out your pockets that you are going to be routing in the floor, and a quick install guide for the black gold. For this, we're just going to do one small panel like this. It's the same for each one. The only difference is you're maybe going to be routing larger tracks to route your wires back to your thermostat. We do sell these panels with both 3 lengths of cold leads, 10, 15, and 20 feet long. If you do not know quite how your thermostat's going to be, when you're laying out the panels, you want to know at least the right area where you're going to put your thermostat. But if there's some question, you can order it with the long leads. On these ones for black gold, you can trim the leads. That is one thing I did forget to mention. On the Gold Heat, do not trim the cold lead length. It affects our ability to be able to diagnose where there's a problem in the floor if we need to do it in the future. So to repeat that, Gold Heat, don't cut the cold lead. Black gold, it's okay. So when we're laying this out in the space, the first thing you do is unroll all your panels and lay them out in the way that you're going to be having them fit your floor plan. Obviously, with one small panel like this, there's not a lot to lay out. But if you have multiple panels and different orientations, you want to make sure everything's fitting the way you want to. If you have to, if you can quite see the edge of the panel here, and then there's the copper bus bar right here. If you need to, you can overlap the clear portion. Just you can't overlap the copper. So if you're getting to a tight spot, you can shrink them up a little bit by overlapping the clear portion. But again, don't overlap the copper. That's where your power is actually running down and across the carbon bands. So once you have everything laid out in the space where you want it, you're going to use your template to lay out where those pockets are going to go. So, and actually let's talk about the pockets for a second. So the whole sheet is very thin, about the thickness of, I think it's like 8 sheets of paper, regular copy paper. But on the end where the wire attaches, you still have these little pre-terminated pucks here, which are about 3/16 or a little less of an inch thick. So that's what you're routing pockets for, is for those 2 blocks and then where the wires end up going. So when you lay it out onto where your template's going to be, like this, we know that that's going to fit in there. So peel this back and then mark our pockets. And then we're also going to need to continue where those wires go. So in this case, we're just going to pull them together and then come off the edge here where we'd be going up to our thermostat. We also still have the need to put in our temperature sensor, which we want to do under the edge of the heated portion of the mat so that it's accurately reading off of the heated portion of the floor rather than the unheated or the ambient air. So again, we'll do our routing here real quick, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so same deal as before on that temperature sensor. We'll just kind of glue this in here real lightly and use that. And while that glue sets, we can just use a piece of tape here to keep it from moving. So for adhering your black panels, because you do attach them to the subfloor, generally speaking, use a spray contact adhesive. Usually we're using 3M product. We recommend 3M90, which is a high strength if possible. It also doesn't leave those little annoying spattery spider webs when you're using it. Can be a little hard to find right now. All the contact adhesive seems to be, so we're using what we can get. You can also use a trowel down adhesive meant for doing floors. A little bit more labor intensive, but that is also an option. So what we're going to do is we're going to adhere the panel down to the subfloor, and then we'll route our wires and hold them down in the pockets. One thing that is generally pretty helpful is, especially when you're doing big spaces where there'll be areas that the heat isn't, like you're going to be having a cabinet there or something, it's kind of nice to mark the end of where your panel is, so that way when you're spraying the area, you kind of know how far you're going. Just sort of depends on your installation setup here. The other thing that is really handy, finding more and more as we're doing it, the ends of the panels, because they're rolled up, they tend to spring. So having some just regular old tape of some variety, just so that when you spread it out, you can tack the ends down so that they kind of stay with you. Or if you're rolling out, you can tape across the whole end, so as you're rolling across, so that you're not getting bubbles and stuff in it. It gives you something to pull against. So we'll spray this out and get this piece attached here. Depending on your spray adhesive, sometimes it's stuff where you need to let it tack up first. Other stuff you double coat and do both sides. Just kind of follow the installation instructions. But the main thing is you're holding the panels down. They're not going to shift around, especially if you have a floating floor over the top. But for the most part, the flooring will hold the mat in place pretty well. So it doesn't have to be a perfect glue job, but the better you can do, the better it will. The less it'll fight you, I guess, will be the better way to put that. So this one's actually laying down pretty good, but a lot of times the corners tend to lift up on you a bit. So there you got your mat, your heat mat installed. The next step would be to attach your wires down in the grooves so you can bring them back to the thermostat. You can hot glue them in place. We've been finding, especially if you have longer runs, that just being able to tape over the top with something thin just to keep them in place till the floors over the top tends to work pretty well. Done a couple of installs that way. You just want to keep them so that when you're laying the floor, it's not fighting you. That's the biggest thing. So once you have this laid out, then the next step depends on what type of flooring you're putting on top. If you're going to put a glue down floor, the next step would be just to glue down right over the top and put that flooring down. If you're going to put a floating floor on top, you want to put some sort of a friction barrier. In this case, this is just regular poly sheet, like vapor barrier. You lay that over the top. If you're in an installation like an RV or something where it's moving a lot, we really recommend gluing the vapor barrier down so it doesn't move too. That'd be a good friction barrier. If it's something more stationary, like tiny homes tend to be, just making sure the heat panels are covered and getting it spot tacked so it's not going to move all around on you is okay too. Depends on what type of flooring you're putting on top. That you do want to make sure that it's not going to telegraph through. So if you're doing a thin, especially glossy vinyl sheet good, you're going to have more trouble than most floating floors. But essentially, that's how you do it. You've got your two wires that go to the back of that thermostat, your white and your black, and the end of your temperature sensor. As I touched on a little earlier, there is, especially with vinyl plank type flooring, there's a maximum set point, so you're going to want to look up what that is in the installation manual for the flooring, and then set that maximum set point in the thermostat so that you don't exceed that. This product is also listed and meets National Electrical Code requirements. So, yeah. One question we were getting here, so I guess we are moving into QA, so if you got questions, good time to start asking us. What if the panel's too long? We had one the other day. We were working with a first-time installer, and despite our best efforts to have everything figured out ahead of time, there was a change, and the stairs went from being a real steep set of stairs to a little more less inclined with storage underneath them. So when we were laying everything out, we were figured out where the last panel was going to be at the foot of the stairs, and it was too long. So, while not being something that we recommend, it is something that can be trimmed. There are cut lines. So if you do, you want to cut on the cut line, not anywhere else. No diagonals, nothing like that. And you need to seal the ends where the copper bus bars are. So using electrical tape on that. But if you have to do that, don't do it on your own. Give us a call. Give our service line a call. We'll talk you through it. And it may be better to cut your panel, or it may be better to just have us send you the right thing. Just depends on your situation. Another question. How far do you keep the black gold away from your cabinets and fixed objects? This is true for gold heat too. It's not just for black gold. Generally, when we're laying it out from any toe kick or cabinet face, you want to pull back 2 or 3 inches. Especially on a vinyl floor, you're really not going to notice the heat difference, but it allows you to have room when laying out the mats, and just you don't need the heat all the way up to the edge. So, but if you're doing the actual design stuff, reach out to us. We'll talk you through it. Also on our website, www.gultheat.com. There are the full installation manuals which cover how all that stuff works as well. Touched on this a little earlier, but what's the largest area that can be controlled by one thermostat? It is 15 watts per square foot, and that's what dictates how many heated square feet can be controlled. Depends on your voltage, whether it's 110 or 110, 120, or 220, 240. In general, rule of thumb, just figure 100 heated square feet at 120 volts and 200 at 240 volts. Just good rule of thumb there. But when you are going through the full manual, especially for black gold, at the end of it, there's a list of all the different mats that we make for size-wise, as well as how many watts they are. So you always want to kind of sum up how many. That's also how you can do your power budgeting and do your electrical plan for getting all of your code compliant stuff done and sizing your breaker panel. How much black gold do you need? As a good rule of thumb, as Bill kind of mentioned, if your tiny house is 10 foot by 20 foot, 200 square feet, you are probably going to use around 1/3 to half of that as heated area if you're going to do full heated area. That's just a rule of thumb. In general, what you're going to want to do is lay out the number of mats you need and then add it up, given the wattage for if you're worried about that portion. The other thing is when you have that kind of rule of thumb on that heated square footage, a lot of it depends on what you're trying to do and what the layout of your tiny home is. So if you have a big flex area, you're probably going to use more heated area, heated square footage. If you've got a built-in couch at the end or that kind of thing, that area is going to end up being a lot smaller. What seems to be pretty typical is usually a couple of long strips, 20-inch wide, down the center, where it is the long kind of hallway section, if that's your layout, and then usually a couple pieces to fit in on the edge, whether that is the bathroom or the entryway or etc. That's pretty common. And usually you're under the area that can be heated on one or controlled on one thermostat, but that doesn't mean you always want just one. It depends on how you're going to use your space. Generally speaking, if you split to 2 zones, if the bedroom's kind of near the bathroom, you keep those on one zone and keep the rest on another, so you can control them independently if you want. But we do have examples of several different tiny house layouts online on our website. There's a tab for tiny homes on there. How do I order black gold correctly? So the way black gold is designed, it is a little more DIY isn't the right word, but you are selecting the panels you need to fit your area. So you're going to take your floor plan or your layout and look at that table at the end of the full black gold install manual and pick out what panels you need. We're happy to take a look at your sketch and kind of provide some input, but generally speaking, we don't do a layout for you. We just look over a layout and you pick from the panels that we can produce for you from that list. If you've got specifics on that, we're happy to walk, especially if you're going to be doing multiple of them, we're more than happy to walk you through in more detail doing your first one. Your best bet is always call Bill. Cell phone numbers on the website, his email as well. We have an order tab on the website, which has a lot of that information as well. So, not seeing too much else. Can we mix gold heat with black gold? Yes, actually you can. We have had a couple times where, sounds a little weird, but where we've had something that's split level. So the main areas were gold heat, but there were a couple of steps, transition steps that were, 4 foot wide by maybe 18 inches, 2 foot deep. But they wanted to heat those as well. And well, we can do a gold heat mat as small as 2 square feet. Didn't really make sense in this application. So actually on the stair runners, we used black gold on those. And since it's all operating on as long as you're operating on the same voltage, it can be tied together and controlled on the same thermostat as well. Yeah, I see Jim chimed in there in the comments about the if you were mixing stuff on the same level, you're going to have transition rate and stack up problems. So you probably wouldn't be mixing so much in those cases, unless you were doing like a tile bathroom and only in the bathroom, or like a mudroom kind of area, and then stuff outside. But you still have that transition height stuff you need to work out. So I think we're going to bring Bill over here and do some more Q&A stuff. So we're going to switch over to the other camera. So just take a second here.
I'll just throw out a comment on that mix and match, and it wouldn't be any different than it would be in a house where you have a luxury vinyl plank floor through the downstairs that you want. Oh.
Feedback.
Check 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Wouldn't be any different than having and I've done a ton of houses this way, luxury vinyl plank through most of the living areas and then downstairs, but they have a half bath or a bathroom, and they really want tile in there because they have a tile shower or something else. And you're just going to have a transition height there. It would be appropriate to put gold heat in the bathroom, black gold in the rest of the space. But it's really driven by the installation of the finished flooring. So, okay, that really wraps up our demo section. So that's going to bring us quick here to our giveaway. So I need to get Zach back involved here too. And we are going to have, after the giveaway, we're going to have kind of a catch-all last chance for questions. And that kind of will be the wrap-up. So, Zach, are you out there?
Come here.
Come in, Zach.
Come here.
Oh, you know it, right here. How's it going? That was epic. It was a lot of fun getting to watch that hands-on. I love that point of view. We're able to kind of see every single step of the process. That's always awesome.
Yep. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I wanted to bring everybody's attention again to the giveaway submission form. It's either like right up there or down below if you're on your phone. And you can click that. It's only got a couple questions on there. It's pretty straightforward and simple. But if you fill that form out, then you have a chance to win the 100 square feet of black gold. And we'd love to have you guys enter that form. We've already got quite a few people who entered, but there's still a chance that you could be the winner if you haven't entered yet. So,
exactly. As long as we never really said exactly what you get, just so everybody's on the same speed. So, 100 square feet, whatever your product, you get the first 100 square feet free of the mat, and that's configured however you need it in your space. So, if you have a 10 by 10 room, you're going to say something like, "I need 5 20-foot wide strips," or 5 20-inch wide by 10-foot long strips to fill that space, and then it'll come with the temperature sensor and the thermostat to control it. But if you have some goofy space, reach out to me. I can help you lay it out. And if you have 120 or 200 or whatever square feet, we'll give you the credit for the first 100 and go from there. So
cool. That's awesome. Yeah, that makes sense. So if you need more than just 100 square feet, they got you covered for that first 100. So cool. So make sure you fill out that form, and I'm not sure, are you wanting to do more Q&A, still jump back into a little more Q&A?
We want to give people couple more minutes. Yeah, if we have any other kind of end questions, just to kind of wrap the whole thing up, we're happy to take those. I just had one comment thrown over here. If you are filling out a form, we'd be happy to add you to our mailing list. In fact, that's our plan. If there, for some reason you don't want to be added, just let us know, and we won't do that. That's fine.
Yeah. And also you can easily unsubscribe from those things too. So don't be afraid of it. So yeah, Sharon, I'm off of crutches now. I'm still kind of limping though. So thank you. Let's see here. Yeah, so you guys want a couple more minutes. If you guys have any more questions or anything for the Gold Heat team, they're the experts on radiant floor heat. So be sure to ask away. I know that the team over there has been knocking out all those questions, like Jim and Steven. They've been answering a ton of questions that they've been coming in through the chat, so that's great. Yeah, do you guys have any last questions or anything else? Or if anybody wants to grab the mic, they can feel free to speak with Bill in person. So that's right, Jim. That's the best tagline right there. Keeping toes warm on the frontiers of freedom. Good.
So we had hey, Zach, one other question that just came up. If you don't have a layout yet, we're okay. We'll log you as a winner because it is a custom fit product. We can't just send you 100 square feet to use 2 years from now, but we'll hang on to your information when you're ready. Then we'll go through the process and help you out. That's fine.
Okay. Good. Let's see here. All right. So we still have a couple of responses that are trickling in. So just give it another moment. Give everybody the best chance of succeeding.
Got one more question that's coming in too. Shipping time. So kind of the same on both products. Sometimes Black Gold's a little bit quicker, but we typically will quote, you send us a diagram. So for Gold Heat, send us a diagram. We'll respond to you with your layout for you to approve within 72 hours, business hours. And then once we have that approval back, you should have the product in your hands in 3 weeks. Oftentimes it's faster than that, and Black Gold, a lot of times it's a lot faster than that.
All right. Let's see here.
Okay, one more question that came in. What do I need to be able to place an order for a Gold Heat mat? Well, to place an order in general, if you're a tiny home builder or somebody in the industry like that, reach out to me. We'll get you set up with an account, get you your pricing. If you are a do-it-yourselfer, reach out to me and I can explain the process. Typically, it would be, take a credit card when you place the order and we'll get it shipped.
All right, you guys, I think we are coming down to the final moments of the giveaway. So if you haven't entered yet, make sure you do that, like right now.
Last chance. I think we're still picking some questions out that are flying by on
the chat there. Okay,
yeah,
sorry,
just to make sure that they get up there.
I wasn't actually on this screen right now. I'm trying to.
We do have a slide to put up at the end, but I'm going to throw this out there. Just my contact information, so you know how to reach me. Best way is the cell phone, 360-606-9492. It's 360-606-9492, or Bill M as in Mary at goldheat.com. And feel free to reach out to me either place. We'll put a slide up at the end that has that as well.
Oh, perfect. All right, that'll do. I was going to put it in the chat there. Okay, it looks like the responses stopped, so I'm going to go ahead and get this process rolling here. Let's see. All right. All right. Probably need a drum roll very soon. All right, sorry guys. We'll try to make this happen right here. And the winner is, let's see, Jennifer Connolly. Jennifer.
Congratulations, Jennifer.
Woo! Jennifer, feel free to grab the mic if you'd like. Hopefully, I'm sure she's probably in here somewhere, or maybe she was in here earlier because she had to have been in here in order to get that giveaway submission. Let's see. If she's not in here, we can always just reach out to her and whatnot. I think that'll work. But
Yep.
but yeah, awesome. I think, let's see, I don't see her in any of those comments there. Sweet, but oh yeah, I love that, Betsy. She's gonna have cozy feet for sure. That's epic. Well, awesome. I think that's pretty much a wrap for everything. And Deborah, I thought she was typing in, but thank you so much for being here, Deborah, and everybody who was able to join. It really made this event possible, and also thankful for the Gold Heat team to put this on. I mean, it's pretty in depth and scientific research that they've done in order to put this whole thing together, and it's impressive. And without them doing it, we wouldn't have all this good information. So we really appreciate it. To you, Bill, and the rest of the team over there. You guys are awesome and always a lot of fun to work with, and we really enjoyed it. So
All right.
good stuff. Well, yeah, it's a great product. You're right. Yeah, everybody's awesome who participated. I see Jennifer is in here. Maybe she's cooking. It's almost dinner time some places, so cool. Well, we really appreciate everybody for coming, and we'll have this recording as well. So if anybody has any questions or anything that they'd love to, kind of check back at the end and be able to see what nuggets of information they had in here, we'd love to have you guys check that out. Okay, Steven just put in your desk number there, so that's awesome. But yeah, we really appreciate it, you guys. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And we will have the recording available, and we'll be in touch. So thank you so much, Bill, and we appreciate everything you and Kyle did and the whole team over there.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Zach.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody, for attending.
Yeah, we'll see you later for sure.